Hi, and welcome to Speechcast, the essential public speaking podcast. I'm Dave Azer, and my goal with this show is to get you to love and crush public speaking. And my guest today crushes public speaking in all of its forms. It's my good friend, Chris Van Vliet. He's a TV host. He's a podcast host. He's a YouTuber. He's an entrepreneur, and he is a social media rock star. Listen to this. Chris has over 281,000 YouTube subscribers, over 94 million YouTube views, over 90,000 Instagram followers, over 38,000 Twitter followers, and over 73,000 Facebook followers, not to mention 4 TV Emmys. And his podcast, Insight with Chris Van Vliet, is a huge hit. Chris is one of the most inspirational people you'll ever listen to, and I can't wait to chat with him. Before I do that, though, I just want to remind you, if you do enjoy the show, to please subscribe to it wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you do listen to us on Apple, please leave us a rating and a review. And speaking of which, here is a review that I got from Downtown Jay, who says, I know Dave to be a successful broadcaster, author, presenter, and media coach. Very much looking forward to hearing his presenting insights and tips, as well as planned interviews. Although I'm not in media and broadcasting, I hope to learn from this podcast various presenting tips for business meetings and virtual meetings. He also has a good sense of humor, so it should be enjoyable. Thank you so much, Jay. I will do my best to make this episode funny and enjoyable. And without any further ado, Chris Van Vliet joins me on Speechcast.
This is Speechcast, the essential public speaking podcast. Get ready to own the room with your host, Dave Azer.
Well, I love this guy, and I don't just say that about all my guests. He's a good friend of mine, and he's so fun and cool and talented. The legendary Chris Van Vliet. Yeah? Oh, yeah. I dropped the L word.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you dropped 2 L words there, legendary and love. And I love you, Dave Azer. You are a legend.
Well, so you're just giving them right back. Okay.
That's right, baby.
It's so good to see you. I miss you. Chris and I became such good friends when he lived down here in South Florida, but now he's too big for Hollywood, Florida, so he's in Hollywood, California. How's California treating you? Or better yet, how are you treating California?
Ooh, good question. I love living out here. And I think that I decided after living in South Florida that I was never going to live somewhere cold again. And for anybody listening to this who might not be aware of who I am, I'm from Canada. So I got many, many years of cold and snow. And I realized that I did not enjoy that. So after moving to Florida, I was like, that's it. I want to live somewhere with palm trees. So life is good here, man. I went on a 4-mile hike yesterday. I went to the beach the day before that. Like, it's good. I'm just hoping that, the life can get back to normal, hopefully here soon.
Yeah, for sure. For all of us, it would be so great to be doing these things in person, or maybe not in your house in a corner tucked away somewhere, but we'll do what we can. I lived in
right now.
What's that?
We're both tucked away in a corner.
We certainly are. I lived in Cali for many years, and I always thought it was funny that you would go to a Starbucks at 2:00 and there was 8 people with a laptop open working on screenplays. Everybody's got an audition at 4:00. How are you handling the fact that every single person is in our industry?
It's really interesting because everywhere I've worked before, so it was Toronto, Vancouver, Cleveland, and then Miami, we had the jobs where people were like, you do what? You interviewed who this morning? Wow, you interviewed Robert De Niro, you interviewed Leonardo DiCaprio, Meryl Streep, the list goes on and on. Now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I know. I actually saw that guy getting a coffee the other day. Yeah, he seems nice. But the cool thing is, if you want to be in this industry, this is the place you have to live. You got to live in LA because this is where the jobs are. And I kind of always figured I'd live here eventually. And, here I am. And all it took was a global pandemic for me to pack up my Tesla and drive across the country.
Well, if that's all it took. We have so much to cover with you because you do it all, which the main reason I was excited to have you on the show, not just that we're good friends, but I love the fact that you are versatile, because the people who listen to this podcast come from all different sort of walks of the public speaking spectrum. Some are podcast hosts, some want to be on TV, some give speeches. You've done all of that stuff, which is really cool. And we are going to dive into all of it. I want to go back, though, to the Vancouver, Canada days. You were, if I understand correctly, the Carson Daly of Canada. in your MTV days. Is that
Ish. I
correct?
mean,
Ish.
MTV2. So, I was whatever, the host on MTV2 was. But yeah, I hosted a show called 969. So they had TRL in the US. We had 969 in Canada. And my goodness. So my first job before that was I was a news reporter. I was a one-man band. I was the MMJ, writing, shooting, editing, reporting, doing it all. And at 22 years old, when I got that job, it was really exciting. And I learned all the ins and outs of every single job in the industry. But I also realized after like reporting on something as crazy as a drowning to something as mundane as a new stop sign, like that I didn't want to be a news reporter for the rest of my life. And I basically auditioned for everything that I could audition for. And long story short, ended up getting this job in Vancouver, basically because I lied to them. I submitted my stuff.
Explain.
I submitted my demo reel to them, which was nothing that I had done on TV. I just made up some stuff. Like I had access, I worked at a TV station. I had access to cameras. So after my shift was over, I would set up the camera and pretend I was like a VJ. And I would throw to the local events in Peterborough, Ontario that I wasn't covering at all. I was just making this stuff up, or I would pretend to review a movie, put together this demo reel, submitted it. And I just knew that like, it felt good to me. It felt like a good demo reel. And I never heard back from them. So I called up the TV station and I knew the name of the person that was doing the hiring because it was on the job posting. And I asked for her specifically. I called the desk. I said, "Hello, is so-and-so there?" And they went, "One moment, please." I went, "Oh my, I can't believe this is going to work." And I got her voicemail. I left her voicemail and she ended up emailing me back and said, we're still looking at submissions. We'll be in touch. But in her email signature was her direct phone number. And I went, "Oh, you're going to be getting a call
big
from
mistake,
me in a few
lady."
days." A few days later, I called her at her desk. She answered and I went, "Oh, hey, I'm actually going to be in Vancouver next week. It'd be great to just come in and talk to you about the job." Total lie. I had no plans of being in Vancouver. It was a 5-hour flight from where I lived in Toronto. And she said, "Well, if you're going to be in town, yeah, come on in." And long story short, that's how I ended up getting the job. And it went from drownings and stop signs to my second day of work. I followed the rapper Chingy around for a day. And then I interviewed actors and celebrities and we've reviewed video games. It was an incredible, incredible experience.
And to me, an awesome story for anybody listening who's trying to break into the business. That is so cool. And I don't know that we've ever talked about that because I have a very similar story with how I got on Nickelodeon.
Everybody has a story like this.
Yeah, right. Because in the beginning, nobody cares about you and nobody really believes in you. Yeah, and in my case, I drove to Universal Studios in Orlando for the Nickelodeon auditions. I didn't have an audition. I lied my way past the gate. I said I had an audition and my name just must not be there. I knew the name of the casting director. I waited outside of her trailer. When she came out, I begged her to give me 5 minutes to audition. She said yes, and then I ended up on Nickelodeon. You ended up on MTV2, and there you go, man. And we have both parlayed that into pretty cool careers, and I hope that people listening are inspired by those stories.
Well, I think the thing is you have to take a chance on yourself, because if you're not betting on yourself, no one's just going to randomly send you an email or call you up and go, "Hey, Dave, I've got this job for you." Especially early on in your career, you've got to work hard to make those opportunities happen. So I love hearing that because everybody in broadcasting has some sort of story like this. In fact, I got to Miami with a very similar-ish story. So basically, I knew that the job at Deco Drive had come open because Louis Aguirre had accepted this job on The Insider and was moving to Los Angeles. And my agent said, "Yeah, we submitted you." And I said, "Yeah, but I want this job." And I said, I was going to be at Disney World a few weeks later. I'm going to be in Orlando. I know that's not Miami, but I'd be willing to change my flight, rent a car, drive from Orlando to Miami, and then fly out of Miami if they'd be willing to see me. I don't want them to just look at my demo reel and say no. And my agent went, "Let me see what I can do." And sure enough, she goes, "All right, we got you an audition." And I had to not only change my flight and rent a car, I also had to call in sick to work the next day because I was auditioning for this other job that I ended up getting.
And it changed your life, much as the MTV job changed your life as well. And it led to so many really cool things. And I think you nailed it. People look at you now and they think this guy's a huge success. Good for him. And I would say they say that about a lot of successful people, but they don't know the struggle. They don't know that in the beginning we were just trying as hard as we could and just scraping and grinding for someone to believe in us. And you got to believe in yourself. And look what it turned into, man. So I love that you have not one, but multiple stories like that.
Oh, like I was never the person that people like sought out to give the job to. I was the person who I was banging on doors. I was seeking them out. Just give me a chance. Say no to my face rather than saying no to like the demo reel that I sent you. And I think that it's so important to go out there and like, and hit the pavement and like actually like make these opportunities for yourself, because they're not just going to come to you.
And I think a great expression is it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So
Oh,
even if
sure.
maybe you're underqualified for the job, if maybe you shouldn't have been on MTV too, maybe I shouldn't have been on Nickelodeon, we'll just get the job and we'll figure it out later.
And that's exactly it. Like, I'm such a firm believer in that. I'm a believer in that in all aspects of life. Like, if you look like you belong somewhere, then you do belong. Perception is reality. And I think that that's a huge thing to remember in every different aspect, whether that's in your career or in your personal life. Just like do your best to try to fit in. And all of a sudden, you do fit in.
You've achieved so much, and we're going to bounce around a little bit. I'm not one of those chronological interview style guys, right?
Me
Like,
neither.
right at age 15, you did this, but you've achieved so much, and you've interviewed Oprah Winfrey, and give me like your top, if you even could, your top 5 people that you've interviewed.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about, I know.
So, okay, The Rock, number one, for sure. The Rock meant so much to me growing up. I was a huge wrestling fan, still am. So The Rock, number one. Tom Cruise, Oprah, there's 3. Oh my gosh, how many? Leonardo DiCaprio, that was a pretty cool one. And Steven Spielberg.
Oh, he's okay. He's my number 1 wish list. I've never interviewed him, and he is literally my number 1 dream interview. How great was he?
So I've had him twice. Once was on the red carpet.
See, now you're just showing off. Now you're just rubbing it in my face. On my own show, Chris, you come on my show and you rub it in my face.
Yep. This was the whole point. This is the only reason I wanted to come on here. Steven Spielberg times 2. Stevie, I call him, you know. So once was on the red carpet for War Horse. And then the other time it was for Ready Player One. And I actually didn't know I was interviewing him, which was amazing. So we went and I was in LA, we did the junket, and I was preparing to do interviews with everybody else. And I just come out of a room with Ben Mendelsohn, and the rep said, "Are you ready for your next one?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." So they take me around this corner and they go, "All right, well, you're next in line." I'm like, "Cool. For who?" And I looked at the door and it was Steven Spielberg. And I went, "Oh, I didn't think I was getting him. They told me I wasn't getting him." So then all of a sudden I've got 10 minutes to like come up with questions for Steven Spielberg. Like, okay, figure this out. And I walk in. This is the best thing. I walk in, I love fun socks. I love like having socks that have some personality. I walk in, I sit down. Steven Spielberg goes, "Those are some great socks. Check these ones out." And he's wearing fun socks. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're a fellow sock brother."
But isn't that so true? We've both done enough of these things where you walk into a room having never met the person before, and sometimes there is like a random thing and you guys just jive. And let me ask you this from a teaching point for any hosts that are listening. How do you, and with everyone it's different, obviously, but what are some of the tactics you use to warm up to a guest before you interview them? You have a podcast now, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. You get A-list celebrities on your podcast. They don't know you in many cases until maybe they see you on Zoom. What's your technique to get people to trust you and like you and open up to you?
The biggest thing I always tell people is the interview doesn't start when you hit record. The interview starts when you walk in the room or when the Zoom call starts. And it's so important to start building that rapport so that when you do hit record, when they do say go, that you've actually built some sort of relationship up here. Like, you're really just trying to build trust between you and the person that you're interviewing. They're giving you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, however long they're giving you. What are you giving them in exchange? And I think that that's such an important thing to try to bring value, not just in an interview, but bring value in every aspect of your life. So from the second that I walk in a door, the second that the Zoom call comes on, big energy. I'm hoping that they can try to match my energy, or at worst, just see that like I have great intentions for what we're about to do.
And I'll give you I'll give you an example. I'm not going to mention this actor's name. You might have been at that junket too, in Miami. Again, I won't say his name, but I went first on this particular junket. And people listening, if they don't know how these junkets work, usually an actor will come to town to promote their movie, and then there's a bunch of us local media types sitting in the next room waiting to go in one at a time. You get 4 minutes with them, ask them your brilliant questions, and then you leave with a tape. So I went first on that day, which is fine, doesn't matter. But the guest, the celebrity, wasn't really feeling it. I think, and I'll tell you off air who it was. I wonder what your experience was. I think he realized his movie wasn't very good. I think he didn't really want to be there. It was early in the morning. So I'm sitting there in my chair right across from this guy. And there's a good 5 minutes when you go first, because they got to set up the lights. They got to do all this stuff. You have plenty of time to bond with this person. Time that I was fully expecting to use to bond with this person. That's when you tell them how great their movie was, even if you don't believe it and mean it. You just try to get him on your side, right? And this guy is in such a bad mood, Chris. He's not even looking up. He's on his phone. And by the way, he's not just not looking up at me. He's not looking up at his hair and makeup person. He's not looking up at the producers. People are trying to talk to this guy, and his head is buried in his phone. I'm sitting across from him like an idiot. He doesn't even acknowledge me once. And this is my favorite part of the story. So I'm thinking to myself, like, this is going to be a train wreck. This guy does not want to be here.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Are you ready?" He says, "Yeah." And they ask me, "Are you ready?" I say, "Yeah." And then they count in from 5, 4, 3. When they get to 3, this dude puts away his phone, looks up with the most charismatic smile you've ever seen, ready to go. And he ends up giving me a great interview. But it's just funny because you just kind of never know what to expect sometimes.
Well, the thing I always like refer to interviews is kind of like an audition process, right? When you go into an audition, all you're trying to do is get the casting director to remember you. And when you go in to do these junket interviews, they're doing 30, 40, 50, maybe more in a day. All you're trying to do is, at the end of the day, if they said, "Do you remember anyone today? Who stood out for you?" And I want them to go, "That guy with the fun socks, he asked me this great question." And I think that it's important when you do have that time before the camera's on, or even when the camera is recording, to have a moment from the film that really meant something to you. Instead of just going, "Congratulations on the film," which they're going to hear 400 times in the next week, you could say, "Man, that opening sequence, that big oneer that you did, that shot, how was that shot 5 minutes long? It was insane to me." And then they go, "Oh my gosh, this guy was paying attention. This guy gets it."
I love that, man. That is such awesome advice. I love it. It's all about going the extra step. So in Miami, when we were doing these junkets, oftentimes they show the movie the night before to the press. You see it, and then you interview the actor. Now, you don't have to see it. It's not usually a prerequisite. And to your point, you can get away with asking those questions. "Tell me about your character. Well, what was it like working with Meryl Streep?" Like, you can do that. And they give you press notes so you can find enough stuff. But to your point, even if it's like a Tuesday night at 8:30 and the movie theater is an hour away and you don't want to go and it's been a long day, if you go and you watch the film or you read the book of the person you're interviewing and you spend 20 minutes thinking of original questions, they light up when you ask them stuff that they've not been asked before.
Yeah. And it's so funny when you watch an interview with somebody and then you like watch the other interviews they did on that press tour. And it's like word for word, sometimes they're giving the same answer. And I get it. They're being asked a lot of the same questions. But anytime that I can go out of my way to ask them something that they haven't been asked before, like, I get excited about that. And so do they. Like, the reaction's always like, "Huh, that's a great, I've never thought about it like that."
Yeah, I had one, and I'm curious if I know you've had some too. There was I think the movie was called The Big Short. I think it was about the real estate bubble.
Yeah, Adam McKay's film. Yeah.
Yeah, and I interviewed the guy who's now in Succession. He was in that film. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, which is a shame because it was an awesome interview. He was great. But his character in that movie was chewing gum in every scene, and I noticed that. And I asked him that. I asked him as an actor why he made that choice. You should have seen the reaction on his face. "Oh, you noticed that. Thank you so much for asking me about that. It was important to me as an actor." Yeah. And I'm still trying to remember his name. I'm blanking. Jeremy, I believe is his first name. But you've had those, right? Where you've asked them something and they're like so appreciative that you've done the work.
I try to like twist like a line or like a storyline in the film and try to like work that into their life. Like, remember when Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway were in a film called The Intern, where
Yeah,
Robert De Niro was like, this senior citizen aged
sure.
intern? I said, you guys have both played such incredible characters over your career. If you could go back and intern for one of your characters, who do you think you'd want to intern for? I mean, De Niro, it could be anybody, right? And it was just so fascinating hearing their answers. And Anne Hathaway was like, she wanted to, what was it? She was like a fairy godmother or something like that, right? It's like, oh my God, it was just I love being able to do that because it's something they probably don't talk about a lot, probably don't even think about a lot. So in those moments, you're literally getting the answer right off the top of their head. Oh my gosh.
And if you can do that to De Niro, who's been interviewed 600,000 times,
right.
that is a huge feather in your cap, man. That's really impressive. Well done on that. We could trade those stories all day long, but there's so much more I want to ask you about. So I'm reading your bio, I'm on your website, and I know you spent time in Cleveland, which, by the way, you know me, I love Cleveland. Cleveland's an underrated town, my opinion.
Love Cleveland. I
I
hear the Browns might get JJ Watt, which is crazy to me.
The Browns, man, I thought they'd be in the Super Bowl this past year. Maybe next year.
It may be.
You've earned it. You've been a loyal fan for quite some time. And as a Jets fan, I know what that's like. But
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. What I want to ask you about Cleveland is I found out that when you were in Cleveland, Cosmopolitan Magazine named you their Bachelor of the Year. And not only that, I saw on your website that Cosmo also gave you this review. Chris is charismatic, handsome, and successful. So who do you know at Cosmopolitan Magazine, man? They love you.
Oh man. I honestly, that happened 10 years ago. I honestly can't believe it happened. So I had been in Cleveland like a year and a half at this point, and one of my coworkers thought it would be funny to submit me for this Cosmopolitan Bachelor of the Year thing. So the way this works is there's one representative from every single state and Puerto Rico. So 51 guys are vying to be Cosmopolitan's Bachelor of the Year. And the winner of this gets a $10,000 check. So I get submitted by my coworker. I had no idea this was happening. Get a random call. Hi, this is so-and-so calling from Cosmopolitan Magazine. I'm like, okay. Hey, you've been submitted as the Ohio Bachelor. We want to ask you a few questions. I was like, okay. So early on, I said, if I won this, that I was going to donate the $10,000 to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Cleveland, which was an organization that we spent a ton of time working with when I was in Cleveland. I was working for the CBS affiliate there. So I said, I'm not going to win this thing, but if I do, I will donate the money. And along the way, we'll also do some like fundraisers. So even if I don't win, even when I don't win, we'll at least be donating some money to this incredible cause. And they said, all right, well, we got to fly you out to LA or New York for a photo shoot. And I just couldn't take the time off work. So my news director hired a local photographer in Cleveland, and we took photos on the shores of Lake Erie, but it was zoomed in so much that it just looked like I was on a beach somewhere. So here I am. I got like, I got really into great shape for this. I'm on the beach in Lake Erie, the shores of Lake Erie. Take these photos, submit it to the magazine. They end up flying us all to New York. And that weekend, they're going to pick the winner. They're going to pick the Bachelor of the Year. And somehow, some way, I remember walking into that. I walked into the like offices of Cosmopolitan Magazine in the giant Hearst building. And all the dudes are like 6'2" and jacked and like so incredibly handsome. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like everybody looks like a quarterback. And I'm like, here I am. Like they're all quarterbacks and Abercrombie models. And here I am, like this entertainment reporter from
But you
Cleveland.
had the coolest socks.
That was it. Although the guy that had won the year before, he was actually on The Bachelor. He was, or on The Bachelorette. His name was Mickey McLean. And he gave me some great advice. He said, when you get there, you're going to want to find this woman named Kate White. She's the editor-in-chief of the magazine. I'm pretty sure she's the one who makes the final call here. And he goes, I won just because I was like really nice to them. And I said, okay, good to know. So when I got there, all the dudes are broing together and they're all, they know each other from the photo shoots that they did. And I sought out Kate White and like just became really like was really nice, became really friendly with her. And I ended up winning this thing, got the giant novelty check, $10,000. And then when I got back to Cleveland, I donated to the Boys and Girls Club.
So how do you find out you win? Is it like a Miss USA pageant where you're all on the stage?
We were at this, it was like a cocktail party, and they lined us all up, and then we all came out and like did some sort of like a pose or something like that. I remember what did I do? I think I kissed Kate White, the editor-in-chief, on the cheek.
Look at you. Just
I was doing whatever I could, right? For the Boys and Girls Club.
Right. Sure. For the Boys and Girls Club. Sure.
So we all came out, we did our little thing, like 5-10 seconds. I think they'd already made their decision by then. We also they paraded us around like we were on Inside Edition, Entertainment Tonight, Extra. We were on Sirius XM. And then that night we went to this cocktail party. We were all lined up wearing our Cosmopolitan Bachelor shirts with our state on the back. So I had Ohio on the back. And then they said, and the Bachelor of the Year for 2011 is Ohio. And I'm like, me? Okay. Yeah, I got the giant novelty check. It was crazy.
I just picture you being like, I'm so surprised. I didn't expect to win. And then you pull out a speech.
It was a giant surprise. Again, like I didn't think that I was even in the same league as these guys, but it was such a cool honor. And here we are 10 years later, and it's something I'll never forget.
I think it's so cool, man. How does it compare to your 4 Emmys?
I don't know. I mean, sorry. One of them's covered by my shoulder there. I don't know if anything compares to that. That was in what we do in our industry, that's the pinnacle. And to be recognized by your peers, who are the ones that vote on this, really meant a lot to me. So I won 2 in the first night, and then I won another couple after that. And the cool thing is, even if I never worked in television ever again, I will forever be an Emmy winner.
Yes. And by the way, not only have I not interviewed Steven Spielberg, I've also not won an Emmy. So again, Chris, thank you so much.
I got a few extras.
You're just poking the knife, and you know what?
Hey, Dave, I've also been nominated 8 times and didn't win. So.
Well, I'll be the first to tell you it's an honor to be nominated. It's an honor to be nominated.
An honor.
Yeah. I won an Emmy as part of a team for a concept that I was loosely affiliated with at the CW. So I can sort of claim it, but no, not to the extent.
Well, you should have just submitted.
I don't know. It was always something that I thought was cool. Never really thought too much about, but as I see the 4 of them behind you, I'm thinking I might need to maybe get some fake ones and put them behind me, and just, nobody will ever know unless they listen to this. Let's talk about what you're doing now, Insight with Chris Van Vliet, which is a podcast that I am telling you, listen for yourself, guys, is terrific. And listen, I would not just say that. He's such a great interviewer. You're a conversationalist, not an interviewer. You've had incredible guests, and you're just scratching the surface. You just had Grant Cardone on not too long ago. I listened to the whole thing while working out. I was super inspired and riveted. Freddie Prinze Jr., I just listened to that a few days ago as well. So first of all, congratulations on that. I know that's a passion for you. Yeah. And if people don't know it yet, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Well, wherever you're listening to this, you can find my podcast. Again, it's Insight with Chris Van Vliet. But Dave, I'm just fascinated by people that are at the top of their game. I'm fascinated by what makes them tick. And I'm sure you've seen a documentary about someone who's just absolutely crushing it in their field. And that documentary ends and you go, I've never looked at life that way. Or I'm going to start to approach my morning differently or my nighttime routine differently. And that's the stuff I'm fascinated by. So I want to reverse engineer the habits and techniques of what make the best performers the best, what makes the people at the very top the absolute best of what they do. So that's what my show is all about. My show is about figuring out what's the first half hour of your morning look like. Kind of like the stories we were trading earlier about not being given a chance early in your career. So you go and make an opportunity for yourself. That's the stuff I love hearing, because I know it inspires me and fires me up. And I know it probably does the same for everybody that's listening too.
And I love that you have evolved that show, because your podcast you're a wrestling expert among other skills that you have. You're also a bass fishing expert. I need 3 hours to talk to you, but you were interviewing wrestlers. I mean, huge wrestlers, The Rock. I'm not a big wrestling guy, so I apologize. Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah, Diamond Dallas Page, John Cena, Jim Ross. Yeah, you name it.
Yeah, so huge guys, and you love that, but you also wanted to branch out a little bit. What is that like from a content creation standpoint when you're doing something, you're killing it, it's going great, but you want to tweak it? The process of evolving. Did you get any pushback from any of your management team? Did you have carte blanche to do that? How did that work?
Well, I can talk to whoever I want. Like I am, for the most part, the management team. I work with Blue Wire, which is an incredible podcast network, and they kind of oversee everything, but they have a firm trust and belief in whatever I'm doing. It's going to be the right choice for the show. But it was scary. Like I was uploading to my YouTube channel celebrity interviews and then some wrestling interviews. And I was kind of realizing that the wrestling interviews were, scaling and taking off a little bit more than just the celebrity interviews. With that said, though, I had a lot of celebrity interviews that did go viral and like millions of views for some of those. But I kind of realized that even though they were both interviews, even though they were both in the same family, they were both fruits, if you will. One was a cantaloupe and the other was a blueberry or something like that. So yeah, they're both fruits. They're just different. So when I decided at the end of last year that I was going to start to interview more celebrities again, which is something I've done my entire career, it was scary. Like this would be like a clothing company that's known for making jeans going, oh, well, we also make shirts now too. People are going, well, just stick to making jeans. You're so good at making jeans. Why are you going to make these shirts over here? And I just basically said to anyone who tweeted at me or left a comment and said, yeah, we need more wrestlers. I would just say, well, then don't watch these. If you just want to watch the wrestlers, you have the free will and free choice to just watch the ones that you want to watch. But I'm going to continue talking to people that I find interesting, and I'm going to continue to learn from them. And if you don't want to, that's okay.
Wow. But you're right. I hadn't really thought about it because you've built up so much brand equity. You are one of, if not the go-to wrestling interviewers, and it is a rabidly passionate community.
Yes.
So yeah, that is a chance. That is a risk. But also for us, we've been doing this so long. We've interviewed so many people. We've covered so many great events. I would imagine there is a real excitement for you in branching out a little bit and trying something new.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's nice to put yourself out there and cover something that you haven't covered in a while.
Well, also, like you and I are so used to getting like 2-minute interviews on a red carpet or 4 minutes at a junket. When someone like Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC or Freddie Prinze Jr. says, yeah, I've got an hour for you. You're like, an hour? Oh my gosh, fuck, we could talk about everything for an hour.
You talked to Grant Cardone for an hour, and I thought to myself, Grant Cardone probably lost $9 million in that 1 hour. He's been sitting in front of his computer.
Yeah, that man loves press, though, and that was the cool thing about it, is he made the time to do it. But yeah, it's exciting to be able to dabble back into that world. And also, like, I love surprising people. So like last week, for example, I had Roger Love on. He's the #1 celebrity voice coach in the world. He's worked with Eminem, John Mayer, Selena Gomez, Tony Robbins. He was the guy who taught Bradley Cooper how to sing for A Star Is Born. He helped Jeff Bridges win his Oscar for Crazy Heart. So I had a conversation with him because I was just fascinated by like using your voice as an instrument. And he was brilliant. And it was so gratifying to me, Dave, to get these tweets from people that were like, I didn't know I would enjoy an interview with a voice coach as much as I did. And I was like, yes, this is the point.
Because they probably are wrestling fans, right? Like they're hardcore rugged wrestling fans. They found you and now they're listening to you talk about Bradley Cooper and Jeff Bridges singing.
Right. And I think that they went, I've never like used that part of my brain before. I'm like, yes, this is the point. Like we're succeeding now.
That's awesome, man. I'm so proud of you and happy for you. We'll get to all of your contact info in a second, but I just want to say, with all that you've achieved, your numerous Emmys, your multiple Spielberg interviews, your Cosmopolitan Bachelor of the Year.
How many times have you interviewed The Rock, by the way?
Once.
Oh. I've interviewed him 9 times. Not that I'm not counting or anything,
but Mr. Van Vliet, I went to college with him.
At the same time?
At the same time.
No way.
True story. He's a couple years older than me, but I went to the University of Miami, and I was a freshman watching him play football next to Warren Sapp on the defensive line.
Wow.
And he was Dwayne Johnson at that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So I think
being Dwayne Johnson.
To me, I think that beats your 9 interviews. But either way, tomato.
We'll leave that for the people to decide.
What I wanted to say was, with all that you've achieved and all the different buckets that you've got stuff going on in, to me, I know that you've really made it because you sell merch on your website. That's how you know that you've made it. If you go to Chris's website, you can buy merch. Wow, congratulations.
I felt like, yes, thank you. I felt like I had to. When you work in the wrestling industry, like I've my toe is firmly planted in my foot is firmly planted in the broadcasting world. But I dip my toe into the wrestling world. I'm a ring announcer. I do these interviews with wrestlers. Merch is like a currency in the wrestling world. So everybody has merch. Announcers have merch and referees have merch. So I was like, well, even if I only sell 1 or 2 t-shirts, I might as well design a shirt or 2, a coffee mug or 2. And yes, you can go to chrisvanvliet.com and you can buy a shirt that will remind you to chase your goals. Vague goals get vague results. It's on a shirt.
Yeah, because on top of everything else you do, you also dabble in inspirational speaking. Because why not? You've got 4 seconds left of your day where you're not doing something. Why not do another thing? How much do you sleep?
Oh my God, sleep. This is just like Grant Cardone. Like sleep is so crucial. Sleep is paramount. Like I get to bed and it's 8 hours, no matter if I went to bed at 11 or I went to bed at 9 or I went to bed at 2 a.m, 8 hours.
Have a child and call me.
Yeah. See, you're probably so jealous. Like 8 hours. What's that feel like?
I get him. I just get it spread out over 2 days. Dude, next time in person, please, when we do this.
Oh yeah. Can we have wings before and after?
And during. We will eat wings and do our podcast. Okay. How can everyone find you? You've got a million places for people to go. By the way, in the intro, I did give all of your social media credentials. So don't worry. Everybody knows that you have a social media empire. I took care of that.
You're awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me on. At Chris Van Vliet, VanVliet, wherever you want to look for me on social media. Insight with Chris Van Vliet's my podcast. So wherever you're listening to our voices right now, you can search for my show. And dude, congrats to you. We've talked a long time about you creating a podcast. In fact, when I had just started my podcast, you were kind of asking me, like picking my brain, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? I'm glad you're doing it.
I think you said no.
I did not say no. I said, this is the greatest marketing tool you could possibly have.
You did say that. Yeah. And then I called you to ask about the microphone. I called you to ask about the lighting. So I've called you several times. So I appreciate it all, man, dude. I miss you. I'm happy that you're in California, but I wish you were still in Florida.
Miss you too, man. And hopefully I can come down there and have some wings with you in person.
All right. Sounds good, buddy. Great to see you, Chris. I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thanks again to the great Chris Van Vliet. I love talking to him, and I do miss having my buddy here in South Florida. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to it and tell all your friends about it. And if you do listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and a review. Have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you again real soon with another brand new episode of Speechcast.